del CFA Institute Research Challenge, una competencia a nivel global, en donde participan más de 1.100 universidades en 94 países. En México la hemos tenido desde el 2009 y este año tuvimos 22 universidades compitiendo y aquí están hoy los 5 finalistas. Quiero darle las gracias a todos los presentes, nuestros patrocinadores. También contamos con la presencia de Saúl Villarreal, CFO de Grupo Aeroportuario del Pacífico, fue la empresa que se decidió analizar, y Gisela Murillo, de Relación con Inversionistas. Y a nuestros jueces, tenemos a 3 de ellos ahorita: Raúl Morales, CFA, director de portafolios discrecionales en Credit Suisse; Rodrigo Velasco, CFA, director general adjunto de Viva, y gracias por prestarnos el auditorio; y Ana Cecilia Reyes Esparza, CFA, FRM, Calla, directora de crédito y riesgos en Grupo Val. Y también a todos los que hacen posible este evento, como todos los mentores, los graders, y obviamente a Guille, que por ahí está moviéndose por todos lados. Y por último, quisiera felicitar a todos los equipos que participaron y en especial a los finalistas que nos acompañan hoy. Y aunque el objetivo de esta noche es tener a un equipo ganador, ya todos son ganadores con el hecho de estar participando en esta final. Ojalá a todos haya sido una experiencia enriquecedora para todos y que hayan aprendido mucho. Yo he participado de mentora algunos años y sé que se requiere mucho trabajo para llegar a la final. Y al final estaremos anunciando al equipo ganador, que estará representando a México en la competencia regional, en donde compite con universidades de Estados Unidos, de Canadá, de América Latina y del Caribe. Mucha suerte y disfruten la experiencia. Y ahora le cedo la palabra a Héctor Reséndiz, director del Research Challenge de CFA Society México.
Pues les pido un aplauso aquí para Mara, la verdad. Nos honra una vez más con su presencia. Lleva ya casi un año, ¿no? Unos meses de presidente aquí de la sociedad. 4 es que parece. Ha hecho tanto, pero bueno. Y agradecerles la presencia a todos el día de hoy. Me sumo a todas las palabras que dijo Mara. La verdad es que nos vimos hace un par de meses aquí, y es súper gratificante y emocionante volver a ver a varias de las caras que vi ese día, pero ahora ya en modos finalistas, ¿no? Eso ya no se los quita a nadie. Entonces el primer paso está hecho. Muchas felicidades, y pues ahora sí que de aquí salimos hoy con un ganador que se va a representar a la Sociedad de México hasta Nueva York, ¿no? Entonces la competencia será muy justa y ganará el mejor. Entonces el mayor de los éxitos y la mayor de la suerte a todos. La idea es un poquito repasar las reglas que vamos a tener el día de hoy. Posteriormente hacer el sorteo de los equipos, de cómo van a ir presentando. Y bueno, una vez que empecemos con las presentaciones, los equipos que no estén presentando van a estar fuera del auditorio para poderle dar pie al que esté exponiendo. Entonces, pues voy a empezar con la presentación, si me pueden apoyar con la presentación. Un segundito. Es que me estoy brincando un par de cosas, pero... No, Saúl, discúlpame, nada más, nos honras con tu presencia y nos ibas a dirigir unas palabras antes de que yo empezara con la presentación. Entonces, si nos haces favor, nos engalana con su presencia CFO del Grupo Aeroportuario del Pacífico, Saúl Villarreal.
Gracias, Héctor. Buenas tardes a todos. Felicidades por estar aquí en la final de CFA. Es un gusto para nosotros como empresa poder ayudarlos. Ahí recibimos muchísimas preguntas de ustedes, tratamos de atenderlas todas en su momento, con la debida propiedad y con dándole un toque personal respecto de la visión de la administración. Para nosotros como compañía es realmente gratificante estar aquí, poderlos acompañar. Hicieron muy buenos trabajos, ya leímos los 5 documentos. Raúl Revuelta, director general de la compañía, también los leyó. Hicimos un par de comentarios en el equipo de los trabajos, nos dimos el tiempo de leerlos y los felicito de verdad. Están en un periodo aún académico y hicieron muy buenos informes. Los felicito y mucha suerte a todos. Gracias.
Tenemos un pequeño reconocimiento, Saúl, si me permites. Es un diploma de Research Challenge que quisiera hacer entrega a Saúl, agradeciéndole todo el apoyo. La verdad es que es valiosísimo, no es fácil que una empresa que cotiza en bolsa nos apoye de esta manera, y la verdad es que sí nos engalana y nos sentimos muy orgullosos de haber contado con tu apoyo. Muchas gracias. Extiendo la voz. Estos son unos libros que también les queremos hacer llegar a ti, a Gisela y a... No, es complemento. Y a Raúl. Muchísimas gracias.
Gracias, Rodrigo.
Bueno, también nos sentimos muy apoyados por parte de S&P Global Market Intelligence. Esperamos que haya sido mucho de apoyo para ustedes la herramienta de Capital IQ. Estoy seguro que así debe haber sido, y eso se lo debemos, claro, que a la empresa, pero sobre todo también a las personas que los representan y que han estado apoyando por muchos años esta competencia. Entonces, le quiero dar la palabra a Alonso Aldama. Es que tenemos a los dos Alonsos el día de hoy. Entonces, bienvenido y muchas gracias.
Buenas tardes, muchas gracias. Pues ya lo han dicho antes, primero que nada es agradecer a todos ustedes por participar en este evento. Las gracias al equipo de Viva, las gracias al equipo de GAP, al equipo de CFA, y sobre todo a ustedes. O sea, todo esto se desarrolla y se crea para ustedes. Finalmente, gracias a ustedes por participar. Ustedes son los que crean y dan continuidad a este evento. Entonces, primero, muchas gracias. También es muy importante felicitarlos. De todas las universidades que participaron, de cada universidad se seleccionó un equipo, y de ese equipo que, bueno, ustedes representaron a su universidad, ustedes son los finalistas. Entonces, ya por el simple hecho de estar aquí son ganadores. Entonces, muchas felicidades porque hicieron un gran trabajo. Y lo siguiente es mucho éxito, les deseo mucho éxito, que gane el mejor equipo, que nos represente a México como país, tanto a nivel regional como a nivel global, y pues que gane mejor. Y finalmente también yo creo que lo más importante de todo esto es que se quede con una buena experiencia, que tengan como una vista de cómo sería cómo podría ser su vida profesional, que tomen la mayor experiencia que puedan de este evento, y pues si creen que este es su camino, pues que lo desarrollen al máximo. Mucho éxito.
Bueno, pues extiendo también el agradecimiento, además de S&P Global Market Intelligence, a Viva por recibirnos el día de hoy. Un apoyo también muy valioso el poder contar con instalaciones para poder desarrollar la competencia de manera adecuada. Está aquí Rodrigo Velasco, que ya fue presentado como juez, pero también pues representa a Viva el día de hoy. Pues ahora sí, vamos a hacer la presentación. Tenemos aquí brevemente la agenda, que ya es por donde ya hemos ido. Ya saludó Mara, ya platiqué yo. Entonces, una vez más, agradecer el apoyo de S&P Global Market Intelligence, el invaluable apoyo del Grupo Aeroportuario del Pacífico. Una vez más, rapidísimo, quiero presentar a los jueces. Javier Domenech, por parte de Scotiabank, que está por llegar. Raúl Morales, de Credit Suisse, también CFA. Tenemos un gran panel CFAs, muchachos, entonces no es obligatorio, pero los que quieran después seguir con el programa, aquí hay grandes ejemplos de personas exitosas en la materia. Ernesto Farril, también agradecer muchísimo tu apoyo una vez más. La verdad es que Ernesto nos ha apoyado también ya por muchísimos años y es amigo de la sociedad que agradecemos mucho que esté el día de hoy aquí. Ana Ceci Reyes Esparza, también pues súper valioso apoyo, expresidenta de la Sociedad de México, ejemplo enorme. CFA, FRM, Calla, siempre cuando uno tiene tantos hay que repasarlos. El Grupo Val y Rodrigo Velasco, la verdad es que ya lo dije el día del kickoff, ex compañero en Banco de México, persona talentosísima y que agradecemos mucho que esté aquí el día de hoy. Rapidísimo, pues muchachos, proyéctense, uno de ustedes van a estar en la foto de la edición 2019. La verdad es que esta competencia lleva más de 10 años desarrollándose a nivel México y algunos más a nivel global. Hemos tenido ganadores de muchísimas escuelas de México, la verdad es que ni siquiera se han concentrado en una sola escuela. Estoy muy contento de poder decir que la participación de escuelas es cada vez más amplia. Dos escuelas inscritas, cosa que nos tiene súper contentos y súper orgullosos. Les dije ese día, el día del kickoff, tenemos también récord de estados participantes y se reflejó en la final. La verdad es que tenemos muchas escuelas de fuera de la Ciudad de México, cosa que desde un punto de vista de amplitud habla muy bien de las escuelas, de los profesores y sobre todo ustedes los estudiantes que se están preparando de una manera sobresaliente. Los felicito por eso. El 2009 tuvimos de ganador al ITAM, repasando rapidísimo. 2010 tuvimos de ganadores a la UNAM. 2011 fue el TEC Campus Santa Fe. Ahí en medio de la foto verán una cara conocida. 2012 fue el TEC Ciudad de México, los ganadores. 2013 volvió a ser TEC Santa Fe. 2014 fue la UP de Guadalajara. Pues ya diversificando nada más la Ciudad de México. Nuevamente TEC Ciudad de México en 2015. 2016 TEC Ciudad de México. No lo dijo hace rato, esta Mara fue mentora en 2016, pero no solo fue mentora, también ganó. Entonces, felicidades. 2017 fue el TEC Campus Querétaro, una vez más fuera de la ciudad. Y 2018 fue el ITAM. Esta edición hay que destacarla porque además de llegar a la final regional, el ganador del día de hoy llega a la final regional. De la final regional pueden llegar a la final mundial. Y el ITAM el año pasado fue el primer equipo mexicano que llegó a la final mundial. Entonces, pues vamos por el segundo, pero sobre todo vamos por el primer ganador a nivel mundial, ¿no? Entonces, estamos muy confiados en que el esfuerzo que están haciendo ustedes va a dar frutos para ser ganadores mundiales. Ahora sí que la pregunta es nada más, ¿cuál de los 5 va a ganar? ¿Cuál se la va a llevar el día de hoy? Pues ustedes mismos lo saben, en un ámbito y en un espíritu de, entre comillas, deportivo, los invito a que demos un aplauso a las 5 escuelas. Y agradezco muchísimo el esfuerzo que pusieron en esta competencia el ITAM, el TEC Campus de León, el TEC Campus de San Luis Potosí. No recuerdo si son debutantes, pero la verdad enhorabuena que estén aquí. La Universidad Autónoma de Nuevo León y la Universidad Iberoamericana. A todos mi más grande felicitación, porque el hecho de estar aquí habla enormidad de ustedes. Y ustedes lo saben, sus familias lo saben, el esfuerzo que le tuvieron que poner a esto es impresionante y no puedo dejar de aplaudirles ese esfuerzo. Repasando rapidísimo qué es lo que vamos a hacer ahorita, al final pues creo que vale la pena repasar un poquito las reglas para que no queden dudas. Lo que vamos a hacer es empezar por los equipos pasando aquí al frente, escoger un sobre. El sobre va a determinar el lugar en el que ustedes van a presentar. Cada equipo tiene 10 minutos para hacer su presentación. Se les avisará cuando les reste 1 minuto para terminar. y la exposición terminará justo a los 10 minutos, no se extiende, es sharp. Posterior a esto, los jueces harán preguntas, también tienen 10 minutos para realizar dichas preguntas, y se sugiere que cada miembro del equipo conteste al menos una pregunta. Es muy valioso y muy importante que todos participen en la respuesta. Esta logística se va a repetir para los 5 finalistas. Mientras ustedes no estén participando, como ya había mencionado al principio, van a estar en el piso de arriba, y nada más nos vamos a ir encargando de ir llamándolos cuando les toque pasar. Los jueces, a su vez, van a llenar el formato que ahorita vamos a repasar en el siguiente slide para cada uno de los equipos, y que esto viene desde el apéndice E de las reglas oficiales que en su momento les hicimos llegar. ¿Qué es lo que los jueces van a evaluar? Repaso para los jueces. Bueno, yo sé que los jueces ya lo dominan, pero vamos a revisar el Financial Analysis, Valuation, Presentation, el Q&A, súper importante, el Team Involvement, cómo se involucran los distintos miembros del equipo, y los materiales. Ajá. Las ponderaciones también las tienen aquí, 25, 25, 20, 20, 5 y 5. ¿Sí? Queda claro, y me pueden interrumpir si alguien tiene alguna duda, cómo se va a evaluar la presentación. Ok. Viene aquí enseguida. Me voy a brincar rapidísimo al equipo, al punto 7. El puntaje final y cómo vamos a determinar al ganador ya completo del día de hoy es 50% de la calificación obtenida durante la presentación, con los criterios que acabamos de mencionar acá, y 50% de la calificación obtenida por la evaluación de los graders que hicieron en su momento. Ajá. ¿Hasta ahí clarísimo? Sí, quiero dejarlo súper claro para que después no haya confusiones ni nada. ¿Ok? Entonces, ese es 50 y 50. ¿Ok? El punto 5 ya lo había dicho, van a esperar cuando no estén presentando ustedes. Y el punto 6 es un poco evidente. Cuando terminen ya todos los equipos de presentar, pasan los jueces a deliberar y se hace el cómputo de los puntos finales. Ajá. La metodología ya está ahí, 50-50. Posterior a toda la deliberación, y ese es el momento del suspenso, de la emoción y de los nervios, hacemos el anuncio de los ganadores con la entrega de diplomas y los reconocimientos. Ajá. A su vez también a los mentores y graders que nos acompañan el día de hoy, también les agradezco su presencia, y al final también hacemos una mención y entrega de diplomas. Y por último, los invito a que nos acompañen al final de todas las presentaciones y de la deliberación alrededor de las 9, 9 y cuarto, que nos quedemos a un brindis, que también nos apoya aquí Viva con las instalaciones, pues para festejar, y en el mismo ámbito entre comillas deportivo, pues festejar al primer lugar y celebrar a todos los finalistas. La verdad es que una vez más todos son ganadores. Una pequeña cita que metí por ahí: the harder I work, the luckier I get. Pues ahora sí que ustedes son afortunados, pero por el gran esfuerzo que han puesto hasta ahora. Y en línea con esto mismo, no me queda más que agradecerles y desearles muchísima suerte. Sí. El TEC de León, el ITAM, Ibero y TEC San Luis Potosí. Entonces, la Autónoma de Nuevo León va en el lugar número 4, la TEC León va en número 3, el ITAM cierra número 5, Ibero abre primer lugar, y TEC San Luis Potosí va en segundo lugar. ¿Ok? Bueno, ya lo saben. Entonces,
hello everyone, we are the team representing Universidad Iberoamericana, and today we will present you our recommendation and analysis on Grupo Aeroportuario del Pacífico, which we will name from now on by sticker GAP. GAP is an enterprise that controls and operates airports in the Pacific and Central regions of Mexico. So let's take off. Through evaluation, we are at a 1-year target price of 245 pesos, representing a 25% upside to its closing price of October 11th. This potential upside is based in four main factors: favorable industry dynamics, successful commercial strategy, strong financial performance, and attractive valuation. Now we will fly you through these investment highlights.
In Mexico, this industry behaves as an oligopoly and accounts for 3 private operators, while OMA and Azur are their main hubs in Monterrey and Cancun respectively. GAP is the most important here in Mexico, responsible of 12 international airports, being Guadalajara the most important one. Additionally, GAP controls Montego Bay International Airport, that such is the main entry port to a new international touristic destination, Jamaica.
GAP shows the most diversified airport portfolio compared to these peers. Its most important airport represents only 35% of total revenue, while Azur and OMA are extremely dependent on the main airports, with 76% and 54% respectively. This not only mitigates the risk, but increases strategy performance.
As a result of Mexico's economic development in the last years, air travel has grown at a rate of 12% compounded annually, and this represents an opportunity for the industry to grow. However, air travel penetration has remained low, by keeping only 0.5 flights per capita in 2017. This represents a huge potential of opportunities for the whole industry.
Low-cost carriers are the main drivers for this industry. They operate like Volaris and Viva Aerobus represent 45% of the total GAP's traffic. Low-cost carriers have been increased 16 points in the market share, and they represent a half of the total market. Volaris is the most important growth to GAP because it represents 30% of the total GAP's traffic.
The 2 main sources of revenue for the company are aeronautic and commercial revenues. Aeronautic revenues come mainly for sources that are regulated by the Mexican government. These revenues are regulated by the Master Development Program, where it is expected to determine the maximum tariff.
GAP has diversified overseas by acquiring 2 international airports, one in Montego Bay and one in Kingston. Montego Bay represents 15.5% of total revenue, and GAP will operate and manage Kingston at the last quarter of 2019. GAP expects to improve these operations by applying its expertise and improving commercial revenue per passenger. On the other hand, GAP has found innovation in the CBX, or the Cross-Border Express. This project allows GAP to charge a tariff for each passenger who passes through the Cross-Border Express to border to border. Due to the cancellation of the new airport and the constrained capacity of the current airport in Mexico City, Guadalajara is the next obvious hub for Mexico. By building a new terminal, we expect passenger growth to increase from 13 million to 30 million passengers per year. EBIT margin is expected to decrease as the investment takes place, but then it recovers and it increases as the airport achieves full capacity.
Commercial revenues represent 25% of total revenues. These are driven by duty-free stores and car parking tickets. These revenues were increased in the last 6 years by 21% by increasing its investments in terminal buildings and improving their services. Now talking about financial performance. The return invested capital at the end of 2018 represent 15%, well above its WACC of 10%. This is driven by their cost savings initiatives and the EVA allowed the company to improve their shareholders' value in the last years. This we expect to increase in the next years.
In order to determine a target price, we decide to use a discounted free cash flow to the firm and roll out other models like free cash flow to equity, this dividend discount model, and residual income. We don't use free cash flow to equity because the capital structure will change dramatically through the next years. Discounted model was discarded because of the inconsistency payout ratio. As well, residual income was discarded, getting that the value price doesn't represent the intrinsic value of the company.
The aeronautical revenue was calculated by multiplying passengers by the maximum tariff. Passengers were aligned with the committed aircraft acquisitions of the low-cost carriers. Volaris management expects to increase their total fleet 7% in the following years. Commercial revenues were calculated by multiplying passengers, national passengers, international passengers by their consumer behavior particular to each airport. This is a non-regulated revenue, so the potential upside is unlimited.
Well, EBIT margins trends to grow through the next year. Even though we expect that the EBIT margins have an impact for the new investment of the capex, and then we are estimating for the next years that we have a growth capital intensive because of the new terminal of Guadalajara will be on the construction, and then it turn to 20%. Well, let's move on to the variables. We have a WACC of 11%, and then which will come out to 8.3%. Is the capital come off like the capital structure. We estimate a beta which will be increased through the next year, and this gives us the opportunity to know that all the structure will be increased through the next years.
In summary, we can assume that if we can expect the industry airports can growing above the industry dynamics and above the GDP growth, we can assume that GAP is the best option to controls because of not only because of low-cost carriers, because of the invasion of the new opportunity in Guadalajara, and we like to this because of the diversified that GAP has in all their airports and concessions, all the airport concessions. And well, we hope you enjoy this play, and the panel is now open for questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. I have a couple of questions. I'm going to summarize them into topics. In your report, you're basing the growth of passengers only through Volaris. I was wondering if you have another idea to try to estimate the growth of passengers. And the second question has to be, do you account in your model for criminality and violence, the impact that could be in lower passengers traffic and the kind?
The passenger increase is linked with all low-cost carriers, not only Volaris, but Volaris represents a lot of passenger traffic for Guadalajara. That's why we mentioned it a lot. The second.
Well, the model actually doesn't estimate the risk derived from criminality in Mexico. However, we estimate these risks as low odds in order to be priced inside future estimations, as they can be, as it has already been discounted in the current price the stock has.
Good afternoon. Congratulations for your presentation and your report. I have a question. What will be the impact for the company for the Santa Lucia project? What happened with GAP with this project?
We do not.
Okay. Is better Santa Lucia for the company, or is better Texcoco?
For
We can assume that we are representing here the international airport at cancellation, and that's why Guadalajara could be a really opportunity to gap, because the capacity in Mexico City cannot be able to have, and Guadalajara, because of its near, it could be better for a gap.
Congratulations on the presentation, very clear. You disregard some of the other valuation techniques, but you didn't mention why you didn't consider relative valuation or multiples. Nevertheless, I did saw in the presentation that there's a section with the multiples, but it's not considered for valuation purposes. Why is that?
We don't use multipliers because we choose a better option that was the free cash flow to the firm, because we don't evaluate the company as a going concern without perpetuity and other things like that. We base our model for the whole concessions, and the multipliers just give us the idea what are the parameters that the company has, but we choose the discounted free cash flow to the firm model as the better option.
Another factor that led us to underestimate the part from relative valuation was that due to the accounting rules that other countries put and the regulations that they put for the other airport operators in the world, it's hard to establish an appropriate peer group. So the only peers we have are three, and peers are Azur and OMA, and that could be statistically inaccurate.
Regarding the termination of concessions that you mentioned in the risk section, there's a discrepancy, or at least help me clarify this, but you say that the probability is medium and impact is low, and then in Appendix 8 you put it on the chart on the right bottom side, which is low probability and high impact. So I assume that's the right one, right? The one in the chart, which is high probability, high impact if the government were to cancel the concession. So one, clarify or help me understand which is the right one, and two, what do you think of that risk because of the current administration? I mean, who knows if they decide to cancel that concession at some point?
Yes, the right one is the one shown in the chart at the end of our work. The impact is high because the main operations are from their concessions, but the probability is low because they can terminate their concession only if they're not complying with their regulations. But Volaris always have complied historically with this regulation, so it's less probability to happen.
I have a follow-up. Do you have an idea of why the government is taking so long in approving the master development plan for the next 5 years? It's supposed to be coming at some point, but I think it's been delayed.
Guadalajara has some issues related with their location, because there are some communities that they say that they were like the owners of that location, but they are going to use their own location that they already have concession. So they are mitigating this problem, but that's why it's taking more time. But in December of this year, they are going to present the master development plan, and we expect that the concession and the project will be approved.
Any time for more questions? I have another question, and this is regarding Interjet. What would be the impact of Chapter 11 and Interjet?
Interjet is having some issues with paying their debt. So this could be a risk for Gap, because it's one of their customers. But we expect that the other low-cost carriers are going to mitigate this problem, because they can grow their charge.
Also, other low-cost carriers are going to seize the other passengers. Interjet will not provide this service. So we do not see this as a potential risk, because other low-cost carriers will seize those other passengers, and they will probably increase their price, but that doesn't affect our valuation of Gap.
As Gap is the best diversified airport portfolio company in Mexico, this mitigates that risk.
What could be with the company in a case of a recession? Probably recession.
Well, Gap and most airports have proven to outperform the GDP, so we do not expect a recession to have a high impact on the valuation of Gap. Normally, they outperform the GDP by six times the GDP.
In addition to this, according with a sensibility analysis, for a kind of recession risk, we have that the tariff growth is the most impact variable that can impact our model. It means that the other completion of the model is that the only traffic or tariff could goes down to the next year.
Regarding the team disclaimer that you put on the report at the end of it, how did you come up with a 12% threshold for being a buy rating? What was the criteria? Why 12?
Well, we use this disclaimer by supposing that our stock should outperform the risk-free rate that bonds, that risk-free instruments in Mexico offer, plus the inflation, so that led us to that 12%.
In 2013, Mexico saw 91 million passengers travel its airports. Last year, those figures rose to 146 million passengers, of which more than a quarter were served by Gap. Good afternoon. We are here today to present you our investment analysis supporting a buy recommendation on Gap. But first, what exactly is Gap?
Gap
is a leading international airport operator based in Mexico that manages a portfolio of 12 Mexican and 2 Jamaican airports. The company's sources of revenues can be divided into 2 main components: aeronautical and non-aeronautical services. Historically, 75% of the total revenue have come from aeronautical services, which are regulated by the government through maximum rates charged to passengers, while the remaining 25% have come from non-aeronautical services, such as commercial outlet rentals and fee charged to stores. Now, why is GAP stock a good investment? First of all, GAP benefits directly from the cancellation of Mexico City's new international airport. In addition to that, Jamaica's tourism industry is undergoing an infrastructure development boom. And finally, GAP is following a leveraged CapEx strategy that aims at maximizing the return for its investors in the long run. Although airports are natural monopolies in each of their respective geographic areas, they still compete as potential destinations for stopovers. Operating saturation in Mexico City's international airport is a long-known issue that was complicated with the cancellation of Mexico City's new international airport. This is the perfect opportunity for GAP to revolutionize the airports industry in Mexico. From GAP's portfolio, Guadalajara is home to the airport with the largest passenger traffic volume. With 60% of the committed CapEx for the incoming Master Development Plan allocated to this airport, a new terminal and a new runway on the way, GAP seeks to capture the excess demand in Mexico City's international airport, potentially leading Guadalajara to become Mexico's new hub airport.
This is additionally motivated by the outstanding role low-cost airlines have been and expect to continue. Low-cost trend has set new market conditions under which first, airports industry starts with developing new hubs so these low-cost airlines can serve effectively the growing demand for budget air travel. Secondly, there's an increasing number of ground transportation users that are now considering the move to air transport. Internationally, Jamaica's tourism industry is getting into a phase of fast growth and development. The Jamaican government has expressed its optimistic expectations on the industry in the short and mid-term, supported in the fact that hotel room supply is forecasted to increase by 12,000 in the next 5 years. Likewise, the lacking attractiveness of the competitive destinations in the Caribbean caused by issues related with insecurity, sargassum, and international sanctions results in an enhancement of Jamaica as a leisure destination. All of the latter benefit GAP vastly, as the company has recently consolidated its competitive position in Jamaica, operating its 2 main international airports, which concentrate more than 99% of the country's total passenger traffic. The most profitable kind of passengers are tourists. Touristic destinations have a higher proportion of non-aeronautical revenues when compared with the others. The non-aeronautical revenue generates a higher market profit for GAP due to the fact that these are not regulated, meaning that the company can manipulate them.
GAP's leveraged CapEx strategy benefits equity investors in terms of periodic cash flows and the intrinsic value of their investment. By using leverage, the company is capable of having a high dividend payout policy, along with a capital distributions, without losing the ability to lock new value from the growth opportunities that come hand in hand with a target CapEx plan for the next 5 years.
With these key drivers in mind, we evaluate GAP via the unlevered free cash flow methodology, and a detailed explicit forecast for the incoming 5-year period that concerns the new Master Development Plan, arriving at a share price of 229.86 Mexican pesos. We forecasted passenger traffic for each airport using Cinema and Cinema X models that consider as regressors the US's and Mexico's GDP, as well as the number of flights in each airport. Regarding aeronautical revenues in Mexico, we increased the maximum rates based on guidance provided by GAP's investor relations team and our Mexican CPI forecast for December 2019. In Jamaica, maximum rates are established based on the US's CPI future behavior. On the side of non-aeronautical revenues, we forecasted future commercial revenue per passenger using a 3-year moving average past growth rates to reflect the recent momentum US consumption has been displaying. CapEx in Mexico, as disclosed by the company, is set at a record amount of 20 billion Mexican pesos. For valuation purposes, CapEx allocations per year are based on that of the preceding master development plan. The amounts to be expensed have been adjusted for PPI inflation using 2017 as base year. We calculate GAP's WACC as 12.41%, using a debt to equity ratio of 0.15 times. The cost of equity is calculated based on the capital asset pricing model, whereas the pre-tax cost of debt uses Professor Damodaran's credit ratings and spreads database for companies in emerging markets. For terminal value, we use the formula for present values of geometric ratings, considering 2049 as our ending year and 8.69% long-term growth rate. At last, our comparable companies analysis confirms that our valuation is consistent with market valuation metrics.
We identify several risks for this company. Nonetheless, we believe 3 of them are the most significant. The first one is related to the corporate governance. AMP, GAP's strategic partner, owns the entire BB series shares. These shares have special rights that grant significant influence over the company's operations. AMP's directors have the right to appoint and remove top-level chief officers and participates in the decision-making process in areas such as business strategy, operations, finance, acquisitions, and disposal of assets or businesses. Decisions related to dividend payout policies, change on capital stock, and annual investment plan may only occur with approval of AMP's directors. The second one involves macroeconomic conditions. GAP's revenues are directly linked to the number of passengers, cargo volume, and air traffic operations. In 2018, GAP's domestic traffic passenger volume represented around 64% of the total national passenger volume. Any deterioration in the economic conditions in Mexico or the US would have a negative impact in the number of passengers and cargo volume.
The third concerns foreign exchange rates. GAP's main operating currency is the Mexican peso. In 2018, 23% of the company's revenues were denominated in US dollars. This exposure is amplified by the fact that the company holds a debt position in this currency. On one hand, a depreciation in the Mexican peso against the US dollar could lead to more expensive cost of the debt in terms of the company's main currency. On the other, this depreciation will increase GAP's revenues in the airports where foreign passenger traffic predominates. It is important to remember that any increase above the pre-established rate will lead to sanctions by the Ministry of Transport. To recap, GAP is a long-term focused company that is continuously on the outlook for both domestic and international expansion opportunities, while at the same time it strives to maximize the return for its equity investors via leverage expansions. The company's efforts to provide investors with these periodic cash flows and the use of leverage to take maximum advantage from the game change in the Mexican airport industry and the development boom in Jamaica's tourism lead us to confidentially issue a buy recommendation with an upside potential of 16.31% total return. So, who is ready to take off? Thank you.
Thank you, guys. I have 2 questions. One is, these are very, very high margins for a Mexican company, and we have a new government who is focused on the poor, and you know what's going on outside. So my question is, are you concerned that the government may try to limit or cap the profitability of these kind of companies? And 2 is, how did you get to the 6.2% dividend yield?
For the first question, we do not believe the government is going to try to hurt private investment, because in the end, Mexico is facing a tough moment in which growth is not at the highest. So by doing this, the president would motivate non-investment outside Mexico instead of Mexico. So we do not believe that the president is going to limit the profitability for airports.
And for the second, the dividend yield is a historic price between the share price and the dividend the company has paid for in the last years.
I mentioned that because you were the only team who seems to have considered the full dividends and the return of capital that the company has done over the last few years. So you stand out in terms of being 2 percentage points above the other teams. So that was a nice catch in my view.
Congratulations. very concrete presentation and very visual. Regarding the valuation techniques, the beginning you mentioned you use a 70-30 mix between enterprise value, EBITDA, and DCF. Although when you look at the valuation section, it seems like your target price only came from a DCF. Can you clarify?
Yeah, it was. We must admit it was our mistake. So we didn't check the investment summary part because we had a template, and our template considered an original valuation of 730 DCF and multiple valuation.
So at the end, only DCF was considered.
We only use DCF valuation.
Okay, thank you.
Good afternoon. Congratulations for your report and your presentation. Could you explain us how do you select the WACC?
Yes. So we use a long-term growth rate based on the government bond yield for 10 years, because if we want a risk-free rate, we want it in the long run. Then we use the capital asset pricing model, which is a very common. It's very common practice to use the capital asset pricing model. We calculate the beta using 5 years worth of data, weekly returns against IPC, Mexican IPC. And also for the cost of debt, we use the same risk-free rate and we use spread. So we started Damodaran's methodology to value companies, and we use Damodaran's spread. He has a database which includes credit ratings and spreads depending on the credit rating. We select the spread. We saw that the last update for this company is AAA, and we selected that AAA, and AAA is 75 basis points as spread. That's how we calculate the pre-tax cost of debt.
Well, thank you for the presentation. I have two questions. One of them is concerning risks. I didn't see anything about security and violence. It's a current thing that we have to look into, and I believe that is a huge risk that has to be in this kind of reports. That's the first question, your thoughts about the risk of insecurity and criminality. And the other one is regarding your model, your ARIMA model. It's quite interesting, the focus you took on this valuation. I was wondering about the length of time that you consider for this model. Did you took into consideration Mexicanas in 2010? Did you reach that far, or it was shorter?
No, we did include it. So our data goes as far as 2008. So we did include Mexicana's bankruptcy. Do you have
And the other one was about criminality and security.
Yeah, in the case, for example, in Mexico and Jamaica, the insecurity is more concerned with the destinations, because it's more about the people's feeling, more than the airport's security as the airport. So the government in both countries are doing a lot of work with the objective to reduce the insecurity, trying to cut the resources of the drug cartels in Mexico, and in Jamaica with a new kind of campaign using the army.
But just think about this. What about President Trump issuing a warning for Americans traveling to Mexico? Maybe the impact in Los Cabos, I don't know, Puerto Vallarta, the Guadalajara, maybe the CVX could have an impact because less passengers are going to travel to Mexico.
Historically, there's not like a easy to see trend, because the destinations, more of the warnings of the US government are to a region more than a destination. It's the same like in República Dominicana or in Jamaica. The destination, for example, in República Dominicana, Punta Cana, or in Jamaica, Montego Bay, the country has a warning of the security, but the destination is still growing. For example, there's not, with the warnings, a decrease in the passengers that travel to Puerto Vallarta or Los Cabos, even if Los Cabos was the last year, the most insecure city around Mexico. So there's not a decrease in the passengers.
In addition, we actually know that the U.S. can, the decisions of Trump and the economic conditions can actually impact Mexico. We did a regression model with the GDP and the number of passengers, the GDP of USA, and we discovered that if the GDP of USA goes down, the number of passengers traveling from USA to Mexico, and in Mexico also the domestic passengers will be reduced. We consider that.
How would you explain to your grandmother or someone that is not in the financial sector what an ARIMA model does, and why did you choose that to model passenger traffic?
Okay, so ARIMA models in general, they are time series models. They use previous data from different dates. What ARIMA models have over explanatory models is that you have more you don't need that many explanatory variables. Your explanatory variable is time, because time already contains information about the data itself. And also with ARIMA models, you can predict the trend as well.
Complementing the answer, we use the ARIMA model where it includes the seasonality of the time series, so it is more effective this model.
Can you talk a little bit about the corporate governance and the ESG policies of the company, please?
Yes, the problem that we saw of the risk with the corporate governance is that the GAP have a contract with AMP for some technology and for some support in the airport industry. So another thing is that AMP have some rights that other directors, independent directors, or the Grupo México director haven't. They can change the bylaws. They can approve an annual investment plan. They can change the capital stock, and just the AMP's directors. The other directors can't do that. So that's why we think AMP has a lot of power and is a risk for the company.
What do you think about the new tax change in Mexico? What will be the impact for the company? For example, the interest rate, the limits of the deduction.
We saw recently a new tax in Baja California Sur, especially to Los Cabos, that the government will be taxing the foreign passengers or the tourists just because they're staying in Mexico. So our valuation or our risk valuation analyzed those risks in terms of trying to take an impact in the company.
Yeah, the risk is there, but because the portfolio is really diversified with destinations that are more like city with Guadalajara or Tijuana, the taxation of, for example, the leisure is not affecting directly the company thanks to the diversification.
Muchas gracias.
In the industry, the limit is the sky. From traveling to visit friends and relatives, to flying for business purposes, or just for leisure and vacations, aeronautical transportation has been growing exponentially in the last years all around the world. In Mexico is no exception. Thanks to a fast-growing middle class and the rise of low-cost airlines, almost 270,000 people fly every day to, from, and inside the country, placing it second in Latin America in terms of passenger traffic. Now, with the 10 most important airports comprising 82% of the total national passenger volume, one company operates 5 of them. And not only that, but has under its control also other 7 concessions in the country, as well as 2 more in Jamaica. This is Grupo Aeroportuario del Pacífico, the biggest public airport company by market capitalization and national passenger traffic volume. Good afternoon, everybody. Today, we, as Tecnológico de Monterrey Campus León, issue a whole recommendation based on our target price of 202.24 Mexican pesos, representing an upside of 3.38% from its closing price of October 4, 2019. But before explaining why our whole recommendation, let's understand the operations behind the airport company.
In Mexico, airports operate based on a concession leasing agreement with the government. These concessions last about 50 years each. They have 2 main sources of income, aeronautical and non-aeronautical services. Aeronautical services represent around 75% of the revenue. However, since they are a public service provider, they have a limited income in this service, which is determined by the maximum tariff. This regulates the maximum revenue GAP can obtain per unit of traffic. GAP's main aeronautical services are passengers to charges, aircraft landing, aircraft parking, and airport security. The TUA, or passengers charges, is included in the departing passenger's ticket, which is recollected by the airlines and then given to the airports. Now, non-aeronautical services represent around 25% of the revenues. And this source comes mainly from convenience stores, food and beverage services, advertising, VIP lounges, and duty-free shops. Now, Marianne, can you tell us why a whole recommendation?
Well, after studying the business operations and the current industry trends, we found 4 key aspects that can either enhance or limit the future growth expectations for GAP. First, GAP has historically shown a strong financial performance. Second, there is availability of open doors for new business opportunities, this by taking advantage of the market trends. Third, the ambitious master investment plan for 2020 to 2024 represents an important cash outflow, which will constrain in the free cash flow estimates. And finally, we have an increasing uncertainty regarding the airport industry in Mexico. So let's dip into the first one. In the last 5 years, GAP has seen its revenues grow at a CAGR of 19.23%. This high historical rate is mainly explained by 3 factors. The opening of the cross-border express in Tijuana's airport in 2015, the addition of Montego Bay Airport to the company's results also in 2015, and finally, the steady increase in the total passenger traffic volume by a CAGR of 8.68%. GAP has shown to be able to maintain a strong gross, operative, and net profit margins over the years. As a service provider company, it can keep these high margins due to the low cost of services and sales, and with averages showing no relevant variance between. We're expecting the proportions of costs and operative expenses to remain highly similar in the future. Well, in addition, the company has also managed to maintain very healthy levels of debt, with a net debt over EBITDA multiple of 0.68 times and a total debt to equity of 62%. With this, the company has shown that it is a reliable firm, especially within the airports industry. Now, Fer, can you tell us about the second driver?
Now, for the second key driver, we found that GAP has the doors open for new investment opportunity, for profiteering and new investments. The first one comes from the cancellation of the new airport of Mexico City in 2018 by the Mexican government. According to GAP, they are trying to transform Guadalajara Airport to the new main aeronautical hub by increasing its capacity and exploring new routes. The second opportunity comes from the exploitation of international acquisitions and concessions. With the Montego Bay and Kingston airports, GAP has successfully made its first steps in the game. According to the management, right now they are studying La Aurora Airport in Guatemala, but there are still no clear decisions that could be considered in the short-term revenue estimations. Finally, the third opportunity comes directly from the inside operations of the company. Due to the non-aeronautical revenues are not limited, it makes sense to try to increase the total net sales that it represents. GAP is currently working in the acquisition of strategic brands that could increase the consumer consumptions. Some examples are Swarovski, Samsonite, Shake Shack, and so on.
Our third driver is that for the period 2020 to 2024, GAP is planning to invest 20 billion Mexican pesos on its current airports. This budget will mainly go to terminal building infrastructure, equipment renovation, land purchase, and environmental regulations. According to GAP's internal analysis, they expect to finance these capital expenditures by the issuance of debt. Even though this would increase GAP's financial obligations, the GAP's operations are enough to cover its interest expenses. These outflows will restrict the free cash flow estimates, affecting its valuation negatively. It would be necessary to wait for the stabilization in their implementation for the generation of revenue. Comparing GAP's capex to its competitors, GAP has the most substantial increase in investment between quinquenniums. Now, Emiliano, can you tell us about our last driver?
Of course. And finally, due to the cancellation of Naim in 2018 and the recent increase in airfare taxes, both being decision of the current government, the national airport industry faces an important concern over its future situation. It's important to wait for the results in the maximum tariff and the master investment plan to estimate higher cash flows to the company. In addition, Mexico's poor economic performance in the first 2 quarters of 2019 makes the expectation for future passenger traffic levels to remain in doubt, given the fact that the GDP growth is crucial for the increase in air passenger volume. But now, proceeding with our evaluation, we use a combination of 2 methods, DCF, discounted cash flow, and relative valuations, with weights of 80% and 20%. For the DCF, we use a free cash flow to the firm, discounted with a WACC of 12.74%, composed of a cost of debt of 7.08% and a cost of equity of 14.01%, which was derived from the CAPEM model. For the projection of passenger growth and the perpetual growth rate, we use the CAGR, given by CAF, the Latin American Bank of Development, based on the projection of passenger traffic in Mexico from 2015 to 2040. This method gave us a target price of 196.77 Mexican pesos. Additionally, we made several sensitivity analyses to support our whole recommendation. But now, for the relative valuation, we use EV/EBITDA with the average multiple of 2 national and 10 international peers. This method gave us a target price of 224.15 Mexican pesos. And finally, weighting this target price by the respective ponderation, we arrive at the final target price of 202.24 Mexican pesos. But what about the risk, Jose?
Thank you. Now, taking into consideration the best interest for investors, we identify some potential risks when investing in the company. The first one comes due to the high concentration of its revenue in just 5 of its concessions. The second comes from the revenues being dependent on the level of passengers. And the third is the significant increase in its financial leverage in case the master investment plan gets fully financed through debt. However, most of these risks are intrinsic to the company business operations, and moreover, GAP has made efforts to mitigate each one of these. That's why, just to summarize, thanks to GAP's strong financial performance, its open opportunity to new business opportunities, the ambitious investment master plan, and the uncertainty surrounding Mexico's political and economic situation, we sustain our whole recommendation for Grupo Aeroportuario del Pacífico, the company whose limit is the sky. Thank you for your time, and the floor is open to questions now.
Well, thank you. That was quite interesting. I have a couple of questions. One has to do with Guadalajara being a hub for due to the cancellation of the new airport in Mexico. The idea of GAP that converting Guadalajara to a hub. Do you agree with this idea?
The company has, in the different conferences, shown that Guadalajara is one of the most important airports, just because they give us one example. Right now, they have 100 passengers that travel from Guadalajara to Mexico City just to transfer to the Madrid flight. So they agree that with 100 passengers, they have like the capacity to have a new flight to Madrid without the necessity to use the Mexico City airport that is actually really saturated. And they try to, due to the good localization of Guadalajara, that is in the center of the country, and they have like expansions. Right now they are working on the second road for the airplanes. They think it's like a big opportunity.
Okay, just one question. I know what GAP thinks. I wish to know what you think about this.
Well, we as a team think that there is a big opportunity, as my partners say. There is the necessity in Mexico right now that the other minor airports to find new routes and new alternatives to the airport, to the current Mexico airports. And we, like at the international level, we have fun examples about this. Like in other countries. Other cities are the main hub for the aeronautical sector, even if it's not the capital of the country. For example, we find Milan in Italy, Frankfurt in Germany, and as well as in United States. So with the current management and the current attraction of the opportunities, we think GAP can successfully transform Guadalajara into a bigger part of its revenues.
Thank you.
Congratulations for your presentation and your report. What do you think could be the impact for the company with the change in the tax law in Mexico, especially the deduction of interest in credits?
Okay, we believe that, as we mentioned, there's a big correlation between the GDP and, of course, the rates and the taxes. It's simple as that if the rates rise and the credit rise, the people will have less money to spend and will prefer to change the plan to vacation or to do business in other city, and or will prefer to use another method of transportation, and that will affect the company because they will have lower percentage of passenger traffic. So to summarize, the current situation in Mexico is how to say, uncertainty, or is it complicated? So we need to wait for the results in the taxes and the rates.
Also, to complement that part, one of the key aspects about GAP's operations is that it is really interrelated with strategic partners in other companies. So we believe in that situation that if interest rates will get lower, due to the compost effect it will have in all the companies, being it airlines, being it commercial alliances, maybe that could have a positive impact in the company as well.
Congratulations, it was very entertaining. I think you showed us finance can be fun, so
thank you.
Kudos on that. In specific, I would like to know, how did you choose the comparable companies for the relative valuation? And second, why didn't you consider a dividend discount model for your final valuation?
Okay, I'm going to explain why we choose those comparable firms. Well, at the national level, as my partner said, we selected two, in this case, OMA and ASUR, being the only ones also in the country. For the international peers, it was a little bit complicated because we didn't have a broad understanding about the difference in the internal regulations in each country has for each of its airports. That's why we researched and we found an interesting paper that actually made clusters of international companies of airports that could be considered and that could be compared financially in its financial performance actually. So we use that as a base. In this case, our three Mexican companies, ASUR, OMA, and GAP, were in the cluster B. And from the same cluster, we selected the other 10 international peers. For the discount model,
can you repeat your second question, please?
Yeah, why didn't you consider, or why did you disregard the discount model for your presentation
model?
Yeah.
Well, as we present to you, we made several valuation methods, sensitivity analysis, Monte Carlo, tornado chart, but we believe that discounted cash flow is one of the best models proved internationally and reflect all the financial of the company, EBITDA, debt. In the other hand, the relative valuation only consider the peers. It's a good method of valuation, but we believe in we believe that discounted cash flow, as I mentioned, take into consideration the level of debt, the growth.
Yeah, and as opposite the dividend discount model, we thought that it was a really simple one. Even though that hub is historically a company that periodically, systematically delivers dividends, only in the 2 years that has passed, the dividend growth has been really substantial, not following like a steady increase. So therefore, in case we did that, the growth expected for the future will be really high, and we don't believe that without any important annexation of another concession, we can continue that high growth rate for the dividend. That's why we believe like in a more complete and deep model will be better for the company valuation.
Hi guys, two questions from me. One is on the Monte Carlo simulation. Can you go through what exactly that is and explain to people who may not be familiar with that, how exactly that goes about? And the second is on your appendix on the macro assumptions. You say that in 2019 you're saying that 1.6 is GDP at market prices. What exactly is that? And is it really GDP?
Okay, let me address the first question. Since you want to explain Monte Carlo, please.
Yes. We use the Monte Carlo simulation with the two main variables that are the WACC and the. Okay, with it. And the perpetual growth rate. So we use the two variables that may affect the company. We have a total probability that stays in a whole situation with 83%, I think. So we do the 100 simulations, and still with our model and our variables, we still have a whole. I think that the WACC needs to decrease 2 percentile points to change to a whole, to a sell situation. So.
You allow me to compliment? Yes. Okay. I would like to explain further, like how does a Monte Carlo simulation works. Can you go back to the DCF evaluation, please? That one, exactly. Okay. In a DCF, we built a model, a financial model, having several variables in this case. The main ones being the WACC, the cost of debt, the cost of equity, perpetual growth, as well as another estimations, in this case the revenues, the cost of goods sold, everything that affects a company that could reduce the free cash flows estimates. Now, okay, how does Monte Carlo work? It alternates the values of each one of these variables by their standard deviation, giving random results that will then be resimulated. In this case, we did it 10,000 times, in this case, to arrive at different final target prices. And then these 10,000 target prices were arranged in a diagram that follows a normal distribution, and then we found the proportion that the proportion of the results that will still be a whole position for us. That's in simple words. I would like to explain further if I had the time. And can you repeat the second question, please?
Yeah, you say 1.6% GDP for this year.
Yeah.
With your macro assumptions.
Yeah, exactly. Can you go to the in the appendixes next? Perfect. That one is right. Sorry. Thank you.
Leisure, business, or visiting friends and relatives. This is GAP, Grupo Aeroportuario del Pacífico. Good evening, everyone. We're here today to present you our analysis and our buy recommendation on GAP stock. Through our evaluation, we arrived at a December 2020 target price of 225 pesos, offering a 13.7% upside to the closing price of 197 pesos and 95 cents of October 14, 2019. GAP is a Mexican company that holds concessions to manage, operate, and develop 12 international airports in Mexico and 2 more in Jamaica. The company's activities derive in both aeronautical and commercial revenues. GAP is listed on the Mexican and the New York stock exchanges, and its equity is represented by 2 classes of shares, B and BB. Our buy recommendation is based on 5 main pillars. 1. Flexibility to industry trends. 2. A diversified portfolio and a strong competitive positioning. 3. Resilience to economic cycle. 4. Cost efficiency and consistent financial performance. And 5. High potential investments. Now, we'll fly you through those investment highlights. And Alan, how does GAP adapt to the industry trends?
GAP business model is based on responsiveness to industry trends and identification of new market opportunities, translating to value for the company. GAP focuses on creating strategic alliances with low-cost airlines, the most rapidly growing segment of the market given the similarity between airplane and bus pricing. Furthermore, GAP capitalizes on emerging markets, which are forecast to grow at higher rates than developed markets. Also, Mexico is 8 of the top 10 fastest growing countries for passenger traffic. With a 10-year compound average growth rate of over 15%, non-regulated commercial income represents 25% of GAP's total revenues and displays high growth potential. The company's deep understanding of the market enables to design airports and offer popular brands that boost passenger expenditure. GAP is expected to increase significantly commercial areas to enhance profitability. The cancellation of the New Mexico City's airport represents an opportunity for Guadalajara, as there are serious doubts that Santa Lucia's airport covering the surplus of the current airport. GAP intends to attract some of the 30% passengers in transit at Mexico City's airports by launching new direct routes. GAP sees valuable opportunities, like the successful Cross-Border Express, which facilitates the passenger traffic between Tijuana and the United States. But to better understand GAP's position in the industry, Ildefonso will explain the segments where GAP operates.
Airports are natural monopolies because of technical constraints and regulation. GAP's diversified portfolio includes serving various destinations, passenger profiles, and a strong competitive position in Mexican market share of 27%. As of October the 10th this year, GAP took control of Kingston's airport, thereby monopolizing landing services and air traffic in Jamaica. GAP takes advantage of its installed capacity, evidenced for instance by the commissioning of the CVX at Tijuana's airport in 2016, which increased passenger volume and revenues by 11 and 16% respectively. Similar effects are expected with the upcoming opening of a processing building at the same airport. Third pillar. The industry has been resilient to the economic cycle. We found low correlation between the GDP growth and GAP's passenger traffic, implying therefore that lower GDP expectations may not impair passenger traffic. A stable EBITDA margin at 66% and above its peers, owing mainly to its cost control, reflects GAP's ability to generate enough cash to finance its operation and expansion plans, as well as provide cash for equity holders. Despite recent macroeconomic and political events, GAP's EBITDA, passenger traffic, and revenues have grown steadily. Now, over to you, Diego.
The fourth pillar of our recommendation is cost efficiency and consistent financial performance. Outstanding features comprise a fairly constant cost of service per passenger since 2011, representing around 20% of revenues, below its competitors. Industry high gross, operating, and net margins. Stronger profitability due to the efficient use of debt, followed by an increasingly growing return on assets and return on equity, currently at 11 and 23%. Above peers, short-term liquidity ratios revealing adequate capacity to meet current obligations. Highest ever achieved ROIC in the last third quarter of 2019, stemming from an upward trend. Total financial commitments are mainly outlined by debt issues, Mexican peso denomination, and floating interest rate. This is positive, since interest rates are expected to keep falling. Among its competitors, GAP has shown the highest growth of dividend payments. Finally, high potential investment support or buy recommendation. In the near future, GAP will invest 20 billion pesos in Mexico and $110 million in Jamaica, mostly in equipment renovation, airfield, and terminal buildings. These capital expenditures will be allocated to the expansion of Guadalajara's airport, the increase of commercial areas, the renovation of Kingston Airport, and the construction of a processing building in Tijuana. Next, Mario will describe our valuation approach.
After considering each pillar of our investment analysis, we arrived to GAP valuation composed of three approaches: the sum of the part of the discounting cash flow with an 80% of weight, a dividend discount model with a 10%, and the remaining 10% is for the geometric Brownian motion model. This led us to a target price of 225 pesos with a 13.7% upside potential. For the sum of the part of the discounted cash flow, we made a 10-year projection and a terminal value. We obtained the free cash flow to the firm by forecasting maximum tariff and passenger growth rate by airport, commercial revenues, and costs. Recognized the differences between Mexico and Jamaica. Then we adjusted fair value for net debt to attain equity. For the cost of equity, we used the capital asset pricing model. It was adjusted by the country for the country's premium for the countries where GAP operates, resulting in a 17.4%. And the cost of debt was estimated as a looking forward weighted average, yielding 6.5%. This results in a WACC of 14.3 and a target price of 230 pesos. The dividend discount model led us to a target price of 190 pesos. We used the historical growth rate of the dividends and the cost of equity that we already explained. And the last component of our valuation is the geometric Brownian motion model. We ran 100,000 Monte Carlo simulations and get a median target price of 222 pesos, with a 56% probability of a buy recommendation. We also carry out a multiples analysis. However, there is only one company partially that can be comparable, and for that reason, we assign a 0% weight. But to express test our results, we perform a sensitivity analysis for our key variables, such as passenger growth, maximum tariff, aeronautical revenues, non-aeronautical revenues, dividends, and capital distribution. We also allow some delay of some of the investment projects that GAP has. And 13 out of the 18 scenarios, this is the 72% support or buy recommendation.
To complete our analysis, we identified the investment risks for GAP, summarized in a risk matrix. Some of the most important are regulation, foreign exchange risk, and shrinking credit supply. In an attempt to mitigate these risks, GAP has pursued several strategies, such as to increase our passenger traffic and their non-aeronautical revenues, matching revenues and expenditures denominated in US dollars, and concentrating in cost control to maintain its ability to generate cash. In summary, we do believe we have identified something the market hasn't priced in yet, and that GAP will increase value to its investors. So, with a 13.7% upside, we're very confident of our buy recommendation. Thank you very much, and the floor is now open to questions.
Congratulations on your presentation. I would like to understand first, if you, regarding the Brownian model, can you tell us if you made any tests regarding the assumptions of this model applied to analyzing this company in specific, and if you can tell us at least what's the main assumption of this model?
Well, yeah, we consider this approach because we think that this model captured the stochastic behavior that, or the random walk process that the stock prices has. We also assume, or we also use this process because it is the base of stock option valuation, and also because it assumes that expected return is constant, and for that reason we use this model. We think that it's important to the approach of a statistical approach. As we can see in the graph, the Brownian model is the base of the Brownian model is the winner process, and if we add a drift in the winner process, considering the dividends, we have the generalized winner process that is the geometric Brownian motion model. And if we observe GAP stock action, we can see same perform or same movement in the stock price as we can see in the graph. The Grupo Aeroportuario del Pacífico is the yellow line, so it's very similar. And for that reason, we use this approach. However, it's only the 10% of our evaluation recommendation. The other 90% is the fundamental approach. But we consider important to the stock prices, the movement, the stochastic process.
Great job, guys. 2 questions from me. Why did you not consider OMA? I mean, you mentioned the SUR that it was comparable for the trading multiples. I mean, why do you think it's not comparable, or why didn't you use those multiples, and why is OMA not in that sample? And the second question is, do you see value in GAP being listed both in Mexico and New York?
Please, would you repeat the second question, please?
Yeah, the shares you said trade in Mexico and in New York. I mean, is there any value to having those simultaneous 2 listings?
Okay, I'll answer the first question about OMA. We didn't use OMA because of the size of the company. The book to market ratio was an outlier for GAP, so it wasn't quite accurate to use as a comparable because it has different size, it has different demand drivers, and cities where they operate are different, and they may not capture essentially what does a comparable what we would like to use in a comparable.
And we evaluate the actions in the same way, the ones that are in the New York Stock Exchange and in the Mexican Stock Exchange. We just evaluate, they are the same. Both actions are the same. Both are actions by GAP, and yeah, they have 2 classes of shares, but they're not divided by Mexican and New York Stock Exchanges.
Yeah, but let's say I'm an investor in London. I mean, should I buy the GAP B, or should I buy the ADR in New York? You see?
It is the same, yeah.
And is there any benefit from buying one versus the other?
There may be a difference because the ADR is a share that is in another currency, so maybe a risk for each currency might differ, but it also can give you back a return that would be bigger than the shares in those countries where the interest rates are lower and the expected payback is lower.
Okay, thank you guys. That was quite interesting. I have a couple of questions. The first one is related to your maximum tariff assumption. You took as a source maximum rate, maximum tariff, but did you took into consideration that Azure has already gone through the PND last year? So GAP is facing uncertainty on what is the maximum tariff is going to be under this new PND, under this new administration. Is a whole new world different from last year's. That's the first question. And the second question, GAP has stated a 20 billion investment for the next 5 years. So one of the risks, if I correctly recall, is a shrinking credit industry. So how do you account for this? Is shrinking credit, is GAP has to be concerned about raising the money for this 20 billion investment for the next 5 years?
For the question from the maximum tariff, our estimation is based on the Azure Master Development Improvement, and we take the most correlated airports that have the historical same growth in maximum tariff. Our correlation between the 2 airports are very, very high. That's our base scenario, and the average growth of the maximum tariff are 8%. This is our optimistic scenario. We do use the correlation between the Azur airports and the OMA airports that have the same passenger share, and the correlation are above 99%.
And about the shrink.
Well, in regard to the second question, Gap currently has low leverage in debt, so they intend to get a debt over equity of 1, and we think that all the debt, the CapEx will be financed with debt, and we think that everything will be refinanced, and it will, because of the low leverage, it will be positive.
Yeah, I know, it has a low leverage, but you said that one of the risks is the shrinking credit industry. So there's not going to be many credits or many investors willing to grant credits to Gap. Is that what you assume?
No, when we said shrinking credit supply, we want to say it in a crisis or something like that, work crisis. Not that they don't have alliances that can give them that money. We don't think that.
You think Gap is going to be able to raise the money that it needs for the 20 billion plan? Okay.
Yes.
Also, a covenant for the rating. Is that what did you ask me?
No, sorry, it's not exactly. That's what the risk you said is shrinking credit. So Gap is facing a 20 billion investment plan for the next 5 years. So, and Gap is going to leverage that. He's going to go to banks or go to the capital markets and raise money. So those Gap has to be concerned about the shrinking industry, credit industry, or do you think in the ability? Do you believe the ability of Gap to raise the money?
Its debt profile has a covenant that includes the EBITDA to interest expenses. In our valuation, they never go below the 5 times. So we think they could maintain because of the high growth of the EBITDA. That's the way we think they couldn't be shrinking with the debt.
Congratulations. Some words about the corporate governance, please.
Okay.
Strong or not?
Well, they have 4 committees: the operating committee, the audit committee, the compensation committee, and the acquisition committee. GAP complies to the Semarnat environmental regulation, clean energy sourcing plan. Fundación GAP provides education for. Sorry.
Did you know that on December this year it's going to be possible to fly from Guadalajara to Paris? This will be the new route within Grupo Aeroportuario del Pacífico's portfolio, the airport operator we're going to talk about today. We are ITAM, and this is our recommendation. First of all, we would like to point out that as any other infrastructure industry, airport operators have a strong correlation with economic performance. Moreover, the cash flows of this industry are not also procyclic, but they are also more sensitive. Landing on Mexican airport operators, we get Grupo Aeroportuario del Pacífico, known as GAP, which is a Mexican company that operates and manages 13 international concessions within the Pacific, the Central, and the Caribbean region. At the beginning of this 4th quarter, they have started operations in Kingston. Also, we analyzed within GAP's portfolio which one were the most important airports about revenue share. And it stands out that Guadalajara and Montego Bay are the most important ones. Now let's talk about business cycles of GAP. They are written in the Master Development Plan, and they have to be renewed every 5 years due to 3 important negotiations with the government. The first one is about maximum tariffs. The second one is about mandatory capex. And the third one is about regulation regarding aeronautical services.
So, our recommendation for Gap stocks is a whole recommendation based on 3 main subjects that we're going to discuss throughout the presentation. The first one is solid fundamentals of the firm. The second one is a macroeconomic slowdown in which Gap operates. And the third one is a relative underperformance of the firm among its competitors. All these 3 subjects are summed up on our target price of 205 pesos, which represents an upside of 4%.
Throughout this presentation, we will try to answer the question, can Gap maintain its course under adverse weather? In order to do this, we will need to keep in mind 3 topics that Gap must maintain under its radar. First, solid fundamentals. Gap's main revenue sources are aeronautical services, with 75% of the total adjusted revenue. It's really important to notice that these aeronautical services are subjected to the maximum tariff regulation. The last 25% come from the non-aeronautical services. In contrast with the aeronautical services, this revenue source is not subjected to any regulation. We want to know if Gap can maintain its course under adverse weather, but first we want to see how they manage in normal weather. Gap has been able to increase its revenues thanks to the favorable global conditions and the acquisitions that create value to the company. One of Gap's main advantages is its diversified airport portfolio, and after our cluster analysis, we conclude that we can separate the company's airports into 3 different clusters: business and hubs, growing cities, and touristic destinations. It's really important to notice that 85% of the total revenues only proceed from 5 airports. Guadalajara and the cross-border express at Tijuana are 2 of the most valuable assets that Gap has. Here we see the growth proportion by segment, and it's evident that the business and hub segment contributes the most to the total growth of Gap, except in 2015 when they started operations in Montego Bay. In this year, the touristic destination segment had a boom. In the next graph, we're going to see the Tijuana passenger traffic. Before they started operation in the cross-border express, we observed a steady trend, but clearly, after the CDX, their scenes changed dramatically because now they have an upward trend.
Although the company took flight in a leverage process within the current cycle, Gap's net debt to EBITDA ratio is still below 1. Moreover, the company has stated that it is their strategy to cap up leverage until 2.5 times that ratio, which represents potential space to incur more debt. We see this as a capability to capture both tax shield and a better performance due to the fact that they lever up their productive assets. As any other company, Gap faces many risks. Market ones, such as the Mexican peso fluctuation, regulatory ones, such as the MDP negotiations, operative ones, such as extreme weather conditions, and financial risks, such as the possibility to pay dividends.
Second thing we have to keep under Gap's radar is macroeconomic slowdown. Recent adjustments have been made to Mexican economic growth expectations. In the figure, we can appreciate a decelerating economy. This immediately translates into a conservative stance for future economic performance. But why is this important to our discussion over here? Well, passenger traffic, which is one of Gap's primary revenue drivers, is closely related to Mexican GDP. This relationship, quantified by the R-square, is of 0.97.
Why does this matter for the future? A conservative forecast in GDP growth rate means a conservative forecast in passenger growth. In the following graph, we can see, hypothetically, what would have happened had this momentum kept going on, and how we affected our forecast to include this fading inertia. This is a concern for the firm, as passenger growth is a value driver. Let's talk about the third topic on Gap's radar, a relative underperformance. Let's see the comparables. On the Mexican side, we have OMA and Azul. On the international side, we have 7 companies, including AENA and Corporación América, selected for its similarities in business model and revenue sources. Let's take a closer look at the Mexican side. Gap is the largest airport operator not controlled by the federal government, and they have enjoyed the largest passenger growth rate in the past cycle. But this is not also good, as they also have the lowest average EBITDA in excess to passenger growth, which means that the company has been able to capture more demand, but they have not been able to capitalize on it and convert to earnings. This is a big concern for the firm. If we merge the last two topics, how is a company going to capitalize with a conservative forecast if they couldn't do it with over-the-market growth?
And now, let's talk money. As my teammates previously mentioned, passenger evolution and global performance are linked to the company's top line. But what else is the market pricing? We consider the next factors: the airport's maturity, the regulatory environment under which they operate, potential returns coming from commercial revenues, and the expected demand growth. We believe EV/EBITDA is a multiple that can capture all these factors. Moreover, when pricing against the median multiple from only Mexican, only international, and overall peers, GAP's price is penalized.
Bottom line, it's all about how we merge all this analysis up into one single number representing our target price. Well, using DCF and dividend discount model, we can incorporate quantitative and qualitative information about the firm's fundamentals. Then, using our geospatial analysis and our sensitivity analysis, which we'll be happy to discuss later, we can incorporate the macroeconomic outlook. Then, we benchmark against the industry using our multiples valuation. However, it's also possible to introduce macroeconomic assumptions through the DCF and double-check the firm's fundamentals using our sensitivity analysis. Finally, we wrap all this up stochastically using a geometric Brownian motion Monte Carlo simulation technique. So, our final price is 205, but how did we build this number up over here? Well, 20% of this price corresponds to our dividend discount model, from which we arrive at a price of 209. Then, the next 20% comes from benchmarking using multiples valuation. Using this technique, we arrive at a price of 184. Last but not least, the DCF model, which represents 60% of our final price, we arrive at a price of 210. As I mentioned before, we wrap all this up using the Monte Carlo, from which we arrive at a 90% confidence interval of 173 low, 248 high, with a 73% 1 year upside probability from October's 15 price.
Let's wrap it up and answer our main question. Can GAP maintain its course under adverse weather? The firm's value drivers are leveraged through its solid fundamentals. But a fading momentum can increase the uncertainty in the firm's performance, as we saw in macroeconomic slowdown. Especially with an operative execution under the market average, a relative underperformance, which means that the company is going to have to change its course in order to mitigate risks. And under this uncertainty, we issue a hold recommendation. Thank you.
Congratulations. What do you could be the impact of the company for the decision of to cancel the Texcoco airport? Is better or is not better for the company?
We believe that GAP can increase its participation in the market, as we mentioned in the first phrase, that now it's possible to fly from Guadalajara to Paris. So GAP is taking risk to, well, it's growing to make Guadalajara the next Mexican hub.
Well, thank you guys, that was quite interesting. I have a couple of questions regarding risks. The first one, here in your report you said that you have one market risk that it says that roughly 70% of GAP revenue depends on Mexico. So Mexico is quite important for the company. But to mitigate this, you stated that they might diversify to foreign markets. The question should be, what are the steps that GAP must take to diversify to foreign markets? And in this same order of ideas, another of the risks was an operational risk that is related to violence and criminal activities in the region. And you said that they should diversify airport portfolio types. I was wondering, how can GAP diversify airport portfolio types?
Well, I'm going to answer your first question regarding how they could expand or how they could diversify that risk expanding to other airports. If you could please help me with the appendix of La Aurora, please. GAP has a main target to control a new airport. This airport is La Aurora Airport, located in Guatemala. It's the most important Guatemalan airport in said country. It's international, and it represents about 6% of GAP's current operation. We believe that they haven't, you asked about the process. The RFP, the request for process hasn't been published yet, but their intention is actually to diversify into this market, into this airport, to capture more Central American passengers. So that's how I would answer your first question. Could you please repeat your second question?
Yes, the second one was about criminal activities, and to mitigate this risk, they should diversify airport portfolio types. Just to understand, what is airport portfolio types?
That is a very good question, and we asked the enterprise about this, and they said that they are currently managing okay with the criminal activities and the incidents, or the high incidents in the Pacific region of criminal activities. So we believe that GAP can keep its course, although the criminal activities in the region, because we have seen, unless the recent events from Culiacan, which is a place that GAP doesn't have an airport, it's important to mention that. We fairly believe that the criminal activities have presented a decrease in the region. So maybe it's not going to be that high impact. We believe that.
Hi guys, thank you. Great job. Two questions from my side. What are your thoughts in terms of Grupo Mexico and Germán Larrea having a direct ownership in the company? I mean, we know that AMLO and Larrea are not exactly good friends, and there was a letter that Larrea sent to his employees at some point before the election, warning them not to vote for AMLO, and then he retracted from that publicly because of all the consequences that had. So, what are your thoughts on that, on him being involved in the company?
Thank you. That's a really good question, actually. Well, as you mentioned, Grupo Mexico has a direct influence in the company. They own about 10% of the Series B shares. And because of that fact, they are able to elect a first-class officer or managing director for the company. And regarding the relationship with AMLO, in our judgment, because of the framework they have to operate regarding the aeronautical services, it would seem there would be some risk. But GAP has lately implemented a strategy, or in their corporate presentations, that they intend to spend 20 billion pesos in the future cycle for CAPEX. And this is about more than 5 times the CAPEX they have for the current cycle. So we believe, in our judgment, that they are trying to do so to try to compensate the risk of when they negotiate the next master development plan.
So Larrea will be one of the mañaneras with AMLO showing off the 20 billion pesos.
Saying hi to us over there.
Okay, and the second question is, regarding ESG and corporate governance. As you may know, there is a ton of research and focus from investors recently on the topic. There's $20 trillion which will be invested in ESG companies with a very high focus on that. So you addressed that in your last appendix, actually. So just give us some color as to why you think this is good for them.
Well, actually, GAP manages the GAP Foundation, and there's a really interesting project they have that is the GAP schools. They try to, in the region they operate, they try to improve the quality of life of the people of low resources to these schools, and with that, their secondary target is to have more potential clients. So that's one of the main ESG strategies from GAP. It's coming from GAP Foundation. Also, in our judgment, as they're having to lever up their operation in future cycles, we actually see as a possibility for them to issue green bonds, for example. So that will be another example of how GAP could also be part of this strategy with not only social activities, but also more linked to their operation. That would be nice.
Congratulations, great presentation. I have a question. Usually for private investors, retail investors, usually whole recommendations don't tell you a lot, So thinking about a retail investor that is analyzing or exploring investing in GAP, would you consider or recommend or would your recommendation change given the dividend that historically the company pays? Do you think that is already considered in your evaluation, or this should be added to the return of your target price? What's your take on this?
Sure. We actually have an appendix for this. We consider for the first years considerable growth rate in the dividend, but we don't believe that this is sufficient enough to move to a buy for the company, as it also has other risks as we've been building through the presentation. So 26% dividend increase shouldn't be enough to overcome the two big risks that we've been talking about through our presentation. And we expect that this dividend should decrease in 3 years to maintain this, or that is how we evaluated the risk that the company has due to economic risk.
One last question.
Sure thing.
What is your opinion on Guadalajara becoming the next hub in Mexican aviation? That's GAP's idea, by the way, but
yes.
What do you think about this?
Well, as you may know, the cancellation of new Mexico City Airport represents a high opportunity for all the airport operators, as the current airport of Mexico City is currently saturated. However, well, in fact, it's supposed that this investment in CapEx is going to be to lever up Guadalajara. In fact, Guadalajara, because of its location, has the possibility to become a new hub in Mexico. However, we're still waiting to see how the competition reacts to this possibility.
Mexico Congress are changing the taxes. What will be the impact for the company? 30 seconds.
For the company, it would firstly it will decrease its cash flows, but we don't see it as a big risk for the firm. So although it will diminish a little bit the cash flows, we don't believe it's riskier enough to move our recommendation.
Pues en primer lugar, bienvenidos de nuevo aquí al auditorio, agradecerles enormemente su apoyo. La verdad es que la competencia fue de una calidad altísima, me hace sentir súper orgulloso, no nada más por estar organizando esto, pero también, se los digo muy sinceramente, como mexicano, saber que hay financieros formándose con la calidad de ustedes me llena muchísimo. Entonces los felicito a todos por eso. La competencia fue de altísima calidad y yo estoy seguro que cualquiera de los 5 equipos es capaz de representar a México de una manera excepcional a nivel global y mundial. No obstante, como toda competencia, tiene un ganador formal, que es el que nos va a representar en Nueva York el próximo año, pero sí también quiero acentuar que en esto de que todos son ganadores, créanselo, porque de entrada fueron distinguidos en su universidad para formar parte de sus equipos. En segundo lugar, pasaron a una final donde había más de 20 equipos, no cualquiera pasó, lo cual los distinguió en un trabajo escrito que tiene prácticamente un valor curricular. Ustedes pueden llegar mañana con cualquier empleador y decirle, yo no nada más estudio esta carrera en finanzas, en actuaría, economía, cualquier carrera que ustedes estén estudiando, lo pueden aterrizar a un trabajo bastante profesional. La verdad es que ustedes entregaron un trabajo escrito y recibieron feedback de vuelta. Traten de utilizar ese feedback a su favor para seguir construyendo sus carreras. Les deseo lo mejor en su trayectoria profesional. Muchos deben de estar por ya haber empezado o empezarla próximamente. Y bueno, ahorita le quiero dar a continuación la palabra a los jueces que les quieren también a su vez dar un mensaje, y posteriormente ya hacemos la premiación. Sé que los estoy poniendo un tantito nervioso, pero bueno, va a valer la pena. Empezamos con Ana Ceci.
Bueno, déjame ponerme de pie porque ya no les quiero dar la espalda a todos ustedes. Quiero agradecerles por el trabajo excepcional que hicieron. Dentro del ámbito de mi trabajo, a mí me toca platicar con muchas empresas, me toca platicar con muchos analistas y les pregunto cosas que les estuve preguntando ahorita. Las preguntas que les hice se las hice a GAP en su momento y con el rigor que ustedes contestaron y la manera en que manejaron las cosas y manejaron su tema, pues la verdad que es un orgullo. Toda vez que ustedes son jóvenes, son estudiantes, yo les auguro un futuro de verdad promisorio, les auguro que tengan mucho éxito en su carrera profesional. Fue muy agradable poder escuchar la opinión de todos ustedes y ver con el aplomo y con la seguridad con la que contestan, basados en sus conocimientos y con esa personalidad que lo está distinguiendo. Los quiero felicitar a todos y la verdad me encantará verlos en un futuro, verlos en su desarrollo profesional, encontrarlos en el camino. Para mí será todo un gusto poder volver a encontrarlos. Felicidades a todos.
Gracias. Muy buenas tardes. Bueno, pues yo tengo 40 años de analista. Me tocó a principios de los 90 fundar la primera sociedad de analistas y tratar de negociar con el Instituto de los CFAs, que no se llamaba así en aquel entonces, el podernos traer los exámenes del CFA a México. Y era precisamente en la oficina de bursamétrica donde durante muchos años se daban las clases y se daban los cursos, se daban los exámenes, que eran en aquel entonces solamente una vez al año, el primer sábado de junio. Me da muchísimo gusto estar de nuevo aquí como juez y ser testigo del talento que hay en México para el análisis financiero, así como hay talento para la música y para la cocina. Créanme que también veo un talento muy importante para el análisis financiero. Siempre que estoy aquí me sorprenden los jóvenes de lo bueno que son, pero si es su primer trabajo, su primer estudio, ¿cómo es que lo hacen tan bien? Muchas veces mejor de lo que hay en la profesión. Felicidades a todos.
Primero, un gran gusto que esta competencia de tan alto nivel sea en nuestro auditorio. Es un gran gusto que estén aquí, que conozcan más de Viva, que Viva es la competencia, ¿no? Viva quiere decir finanzas intuitivas, y hoy creo que lo que me llevo de todas sus presentaciones es que las finanzas deben de poder ser explicadas a no financieros, sino como financieros no estamos haciendo bien nuestra chamba. Entonces creo que todos ustedes cumplen con eso de ser financieros que explican las finanzas fáciles. Entonces ya eso es un check y no lo pierdan. Y otra cosa que yo les dejaría, que a mí me pasaba, siempre estaba en temas de inversiones, desde el Banco de México, en la universidad y en diferentes casas de bolsa, y creo que siempre yo quería encajar las finanzas con algo muy técnico y científico, y a lo largo de los años y cada día que pasa me doy cuenta más que las finanzas es muy lejos de ser algo exacto, científico, y aunque lo técnico es un must, ¿no? Porque es algo que sí o sí se requiere para un buen análisis y para un análisis riguroso, al final está muy por encima, y los analistas buenos, malos, regulares y excelentes, en mi opinión, se distinguen por siempre usar su sentido común, la intuición, y que las cosas hagan sentido, ¿no? Los números, los modelos, si no entendemos qué nos quieren decir o por qué usamos uno o el otro, de nada sirve rebuscarnos la cabeza con 100 teorías, ¿no? Hay que siempre aterrizarlo a que nos haga sentido, ¿no? Si no nos hacen sentido, ningún modelo nos sirve, ¿no? Al final lo que queremos es hacer las cosas y la toma de decisiones más simple, no más complicada, ¿no? Entonces, usémoslo de manera intuitiva, amigable, y probemos nuestras teorías intentando explicárselo a nuestros abuelitos, tíos y familiares, y si no te entienden, pues no está siendo claro, ¿no? Entonces, eso les dejo, y un gusto que estén aquí.
Bueno, gracias por su presencia y por su participación. En verdad los felicito. Es un reto muy padre. El hecho de que estén aquí habla muy bien de ustedes. Sigan así en sus carreras y en sus actividades que hagan en el futuro. Yo Fui analista hace mucho tiempo, entonces sé lo que es hacer un reporte de estos. Son muchas horas y mucho estudio y digerir mucha información, números y los estados financieros y las notas de pie que a veces tienen detalle importante. Entonces, de nuevo, felicidades. Lo hicieron muy bien todos, tenemos que llegar a un ganador y sé que ya están ansiosos de saberlo, lo haremos, pero en un par de minutos más, porque es importante que escuchen también lo que jueces y lo que personas que hemos estado en el medio mucho tiempo pues podemos aportarles, ¿no? Búsquennos si necesitan, no solo para preguntas del CFA Challenge, sino en general lo que queremos y parte por la que estamos aquí, al menos en mi caso, es pues, darle de regreso a la sociedad y a la academia y a México pues, mucho de lo que nos ha dado. Tenemos un potencial enorme, como sabemos. Es un momento complicado políticamente por razones que no voy a profundizar, pero gracias a eso también hay oportunidades para que ustedes hagan su trabajo bien y en su análisis y en sus trabajos futuros, ¿no? Yo fui mentor también de algunos equipos hace varios años y gracias a eso conocí a chavos abusadísimos que ahorita están trabajando en la industria y son portfolio managers como yo y como otros súper talentosos. Entonces, créanselo, o sea, esto es una semillita de talento para las finanzas de México en un futuro y no lo echen por detrás, ¿no? Entonces, acérquense a nosotros, estamos para ayudarles, somos una comunidad y queremos que el talento pues vaya creciendo y vaya haciendo lo que están haciendo y de nuevo felicidades y gracias por estar aquí.
Muchas gracias, Raúl. Pues llegó el momento. Voy a ir nombrando a los equipos. Ustedes son los protagonistas el día de hoy. Es su momento, entonces, finalistas y ganadores, sí les quiero dedicar un momento para que se puedan tomar su foto. Le pido a los mentores y a los faculty advisors que también pasen con el equipo para que se puedan tomar una foto. Van a recibir su diploma, su trofeo, su kit de regalitos. CFA Society de México. Y nada, entonces, si les parece, empezamos por el quinto lugar. Les pido el mismo aplauso que dieron hace rato cuando les pedí el espíritu deportivo. Por favor, aplauso para todos los equipos tan fuerte como puedan. Muchas felicidades. Quinto lugar, Universidad Iberoamericana. Cuarto lugar, Universidad Autónoma de Nuevo León. Un mensaje más. No, quiero aplaudir porque ahorita recordé, el trabajo en equipo es fundamental en esta profesión y ustedes reflejaron trabajo en equipo enormemente. Entonces no puedo más que decirles que sigan así. Tercer lugar, Tech Campus San Luis Potosí.
Juntan un poquito más, por favor. ¿Ya listos?
Un segundo.
¿Listos? Sonriendo.
Por respeto a las dos escuelas, quiero dar el segundo lugar. Obviamente van a saber quién es el primer lugar. Posteriormente quiero dar en fuerte el nombre del primer lugar, pero no quiero omitir a ninguna de las dos escuelas, si les parece. Entonces, voy a dar segundo lugar y pasan por su foto también, y posteriormente doy al primer lugar y también le damos su aplauso muy fuerte, por favor. Segundo lugar, Tech Campus León. Por último, les pido un fuerte aplauso y reconocimiento a los ganadores del CFA Research Challenge Edición México 2019-2020, el ITAM.
Muy bien, equipo, muy bien. Muy bien, equipo, muy bien. ¡Bravo! ¡Bravo, Tam! ¡Digan ahí! ¡Digan una T! ¡Digan una A! ¡Digan una M! ¿Qué dice? ¡Digan! ¡Bravo!
Y vale la pena agradecérselo públicamente. No me queda más que agradecer el esfuerzo,